Hello everybody, this is Zach with Top Deck Nation coming at you today with a new video segment that I'd like to call Decks for Less. In this segment we're going to be looking at some decks that are, pretty budget friendly, wallet friendly decks. So, if you're a beginner and I know it can be kind of overwhelming. I've been playing the Pokemon trading card game for about 4 years now, and when I first started it was kind of overwhelming. You had to go out and buy the packs and the booster boxes and trade for stuff. And it's really overwhelming because if you want to make a competitive deck, you might be out 100, 200, $300-$400, right? So my goal with this video segment is to make decks that are pretty semi-competitive or maybe even competitive at a tournament that you could just bring and play and hopefully do well. And yeah, that's really the goal of this. So in this case it's going to be a budget deck, but we're also going to have some other ones like fun decks and things like that. But today we are going to look at a budget deck that's pretty interesting. Like I said, we're not going to be playing things like Shaymin-EX or Octillery or anything else that just costs a lot right now. Shaymin-EX is it's really ridiculous. It's upwards of, $50-$60 a card, and that is just crazy for one card just to kind of add your consistency. And, even Octillery is kind of shot up. It's like $15 right now. When it came out, it was like a $3 card. So in this case, I've just tried to add lots of consistency cards and supporters instead. So, today we're going to be looking at a Meowstic-EX Bats deck. So Meowstic-EX is actually from the Generations expansion. It came out in February, I think. Pokemon has been releasing these monthly boxes like the Mythical Mew collection and Celebi and the big Charizard boxes. So that is really the only way you can get these kinds of cards if you want them in the pack. But, if you want to just buy the singles, that's what I would recommend because instead of having to waste money on booster packs and kind of hoping and praying that you get the EX that you want, a lot of times it's much better to just go ahead and buy the singles. And I'll be, making some videos in the future with some kind of how-to guides on buying and selling and trading and such. But, Meowstic-EX, it's like $3 on Amazon and trollanto.com. But let's look at it. So Meowstic, it's got 160 HP. Of course, it is a psychic Pokemon, so it can take advantage of that Dimension Valley, which we'll go over. But the Shadow Ear ability is pretty cool. It says once during your turn, if Meowstic is your active Pokemon, you can move one damage counter from this Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So I like this. Moving damage counters around, placing damage counters, obviously has some synergy with, Golbat and Crobat, so that's pretty cool. It's also going to kind of offset the math a little bit, so that's something that I really like. So if I can move damage counters and kind of heal that way, that's pretty cool. And then Mind Shock, it's doing 60. We're just going to save for 1 energy thanks to Dimension Valley, and it's not affected by weakness or resistance. So I actually like that a whole lot. It doesn't really affect the math too much because I can use bats to kind of offset something. So, if I was originally going to hit like a Lucario EX for weakness and now I can't, that's not too bad. We have other attackers for that. I do like that it goes through resistance though. So if there's any Pokemon that are resistant, such as maybe Genesect-EX or Bronzong, you can get through that and it's going to do 60 damage. It is weak to Psychic, so it is going to be weak to Pumpkaboo and other Night Marchers, but we do have some counters for that, which I'll show in a minute. And then the 1 retreat cost is pretty cool. So, like I said, Meowstic is a pretty solid attacker. For 1 energy with a Fighting Fury belt, it's doing 70, which is pretty cool already, but then the Shadow Ear ability is making it do upwards of 80 damage, combined with the bats that we're going to go over. Another attacker is Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet's super cheap. A lot of these cards are just reprints and generations. I'm glad Pokemon decided to do that. Wobbuffet is known for that Bide Barricade ability, so as long as it's active, it shuts off all abilities except for Psychic Pokemon. And, luckily, all of our Pokemon are Psychic, so Wobbuffet will not affect us, but it will affect our opponent. So, for example, if we have Wobbuffet out our first turn, going into my opponent's turn, they cannot put down things like Shaymin, they can't use Octillery, things like that. So it's really good ability, really strong. And then Psychic Assault for 1 energy with the Dimension Valley. It's going to do 10 and then 10 more for each damage counter. So there is a recurring theme here if you haven't noticed, and that's going to be placing and just kind of moving around damage counters. And because it is a 2 retreat cost, I can't retreat with a Psychic Energy, but keep in mind I do play 3 Mystery Energy, and that's going to give free retreat to Meowstic and Wobbuffet and Zubat. So, talking about the bats, we have a 4-4-3 line that is just for consistency to the max. We need consistency since we don't have things like Verse Seeker to kind of reuse our supporters. We don't have Shamans to kind of draw more cards. So, we play 4 Zubat here. We want to get these guys out as soon as possible. We have 4 Golbat, which has the Sneaky Bite, puts 2 damage counters on one of our opponent's Pokemon, and it has free retreat, so that's awesome. And then Crobat puts 3 damage counters on one of your Pokemon, and then it has the Skill Dive, which you probably won't use it all that much, but you never know, it could come in handy. It can snipe things like Joltik on the bench for a cheap prize. So, that is our Pokemon line. For our supporter line, I just focus on consistency. For Professor Sycamore, probably the best supporter we have. Discard your hand, draw 7. But I will say, be careful with this in a budget deck because, it's really hard to kind of reuse your resources here. I would much prefer using N throughout the game. So just be careful here, but it is good. N, great card. Shuffle your hand in, draw a card for each of your prize cards. And it's great because it's also disrupting your opponent as well because they have to do that. So I really, really like that. I think it is a really powerful card. So, just keep that in mind. And I would much prefer using N throughout the game. Just keep that in mind as well. So, just a tip there. We play 2 Lysandre. This is good if our opponent is retreating. Yeah, we do have damage counters to place, but Wobbuffet and Meowstic are actually doing a lot more damage than that. So, Lysandre is very helpful here. It's also helpful if you just want to kind of get a cheap knockout on something like a Shaman. So, we're going to play 2 AZ. 2 AZ is pretty good. I think it's consistent because that way if you have to discard the AZ, you still have 1 left along with the Super Scoop Ups. And that's going to let you put 1 Pokemon in your hand and discard everything attached to it. So it's going to let me scoop up a Meowstic or a Wobbuffet and lay those guys back down. So it's a healing card. It's also good as a switching card because Meowstic and Wobbuffet, sometimes we need to retreat out. And it's also really good for the bats because I can set up these plays. For example, say I've got a Zubat, a Golbat, and a Crobat out. Let's say I AZ the Crobat. Well, now I can lay that one back down, lay that Zubat back down, and then I can evolve into Golbat and evolve into Crobat. So that is a pretty interesting play, pretty pro play, and you can definitely pull that off with 2AZ. As far as the item cards here, the MVP is probably going to be Super Scoop Up. It is a flip card, but it is a huge reward if you get heads. Put one of your Pokemon and all cards attached to it. So kind of like AZ, but better. So you're going to be able to reuse your bats. You're going to be able to heal your Meowstic and Wobbuffet. So really good. We play 4 Trainers Mail. That's just consistency, being able to get these trainer cards out really quick. We're playing 3 Ultra Ball and 3 Level Ball. I personally like this split. 4 Ultra Ball is good because you can search out anything, but we have so many resources in here. I don't want to potentially get rid of a lot of stuff my first turn. Level Ball is really good because it's explosive. I need to get those bats out as soon as possible. Turn 1, I want a couple bats out, 3 bats out. So that is why we're going to be doing that split, which I really think is good. We're also going to be playing 3 Fighting Fury Belt. This is going to add more HP to Meowstic and Wobbuffet, make them a little tougher to get knocked out, and the benefit of doing 10 more damage is always good as well. We're going to be playing a couple of tech cards here. We're going to be playing 1 Startling Megaphone. There are so many decks that are playing Fighting Fury Belt right now, so we want to be able to take knockouts on those. And honestly, a second one, now that I think about it, might be good. I don't know what you would take out exactly, but being able to knock off all their tools is very huge. And that's going to help you win games because, if an Yveltal EX, for example, has 210 HP, I think, that is going to be a lot harder to knock out than 170 HP, right? So we are going to play that. And finally, we have a Super Rod in here. And Super Rod is good just to get back your energies, get back your Pokemon. So it has dual benefits there. You could definitely swap it out for a Sacred Ash though, which gets 5 Pokemon but no energy. So I could definitely see that because you do play a lot of bats, and if I have to discard those, I want to get those back. But since we play a low energy count of the Psychic Energy, it might be wiser to get something that has that dual benefit effect. So Yeah, I think that's about it. Like I said, our energy count, we're only playing 8 energy, 5 psychic, 3 mystery, because all of our guys hit between 0 and 1 energy. They can attack for pretty much nothing. So really efficient. And then, yeah, finally, 4 Dimension Valley. This is going to let us hit for 0 energy with Crobat and Golbat, but then 1 energy with Meowstic and Wobbuffet. So we're going to max that out just because a lot of people play stadiums. Greninja decks usually play 3-4 Rough Seas. Evil Tall decks typically play, Parallel City, Reverse Valley. So we need to max that out so we can win that stadium war. But that is pretty much it, guys. I really like this deck. My wife has had a little bit of success with this deck. Hers was a different variant. She was playing with like Shaman and things like that. But this is a nice budget-friendly deck. I really like it. It has a lot of synergy, moving damage counters, placing damage counters. I've tried to make it as consistent as possible, so it's pretty much just pick up and play, and it's a very cheap deck. None of this stuff is expensive. I think the most expensive card in here, just kind of looking over here real quick, I'd say is the Meowstic, which is like $3. I mean, everything else is like $1 or less. Fighting Fury Belt might be like $2, but yeah, so this is a good budget deck for you guys. Comment below, let me know what other budget decks you want me to start making in the future, and I'll definitely read those comments. But be sure to like our channel, subscribe, and like us on Facebook as well, facebook.com/TopDeckNation. We have a website, topdecknation.com, completely free, 100% free. It is a non-profit website. But we do accept donations, of course, but it's going to have free articles, free guides, things like that. I'm working really hard on finishing this website, so be sure to check it out. But in the meantime, this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation, and I will catch you guys in the next video.